They called themselves patriots, but they called the government the enemy.
If they come to get me, there's going to be a battle.
Whose country is it? 48 Hours, Thursday.
President Clinton today sent Congress his plan to allow the U.S. government more power to penetrate what the government considers to be domestic terrorist groups. But with one big change. It now says the president would share, not act alone, in deciding which groups to infiltrate. This comes amid a growing national debate. How to better protect the public from domestic terrorism without violating individual rights and lawful political activity. Correspondent Peter Van Sant has tonight's Eye on America.
This is a CBS News special report.
Then the commentator came on and said Oklahoma City federal building was bombed. It was an explosion there.
As Evelyn Kirkpatrick of Suffern, New York, watched live coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing, the images had a haunting familiarity.
Saw the same chaos.
She was reliving the World Trade Center bombing of 2 years ago, which took the life of her husband, Bob.
And when Bob was killed?
I was dead too.
Evelyn received a letter from President Clinton expressing his sympathy. Now she is sending a message back to Washington.
How many more people is going to get killed before this government will see what's happening? This is a war on terrorism that can be you tomorrow.
The Clinton administration is considering proposals that the FBI be given broad new powers to infiltrate and surveil menacing groups, even when there's no evidence that they've broken the law. It's touched off a passionate debate, the need to fight terrorism versus the right of free speech.
They tapped their telephones, they set surveillance on the block we lived on.
Arthur Waskow was a nonviolent anti-war activist during the 60s and 70s.
But the government saw you as a terrorist.
Exactly.
Waskow knows all this today because he sued the FBI and won. A jury found the agency guilty of conducting a secret smear campaign against Waskow and his family. He now fears a more powerful FBI would harm basic civil rights.
Anybody who makes trouble, anybody who says publicly we think the government's doing something wrong, we're going to check it out because who knows, maybe they will use violence. And I think that is very, very, very dangerous.
What are you talking about civil rights? Civil rights means nothing when you're dead.
James Fox is the former head of the New York FBI office. He led the investigation into the World Trade Center bombing.
I believe lives could be saved by relaxing the Attorney General guidelines to allow us to surveil, to do greater infiltration under all the oversight anybody wants to give us.
If you give an agent more authority than he should have, he will abuse.
Wesley Swearingen is not a former protester. He's a retired FBI agent who claims he took part in illegal surveillance and searches.
And if they have more power now, they will be hounding everyone suspected of being a member of the militia. And I know it because I've been there and I've seen it.
Could a more intrusive FBI have prevented a number of recent terrorist bombings? Evelyn Kirkpatrick agonizes over that possibility.
Act before, not after. After is too late. After, you just ruin lives.
Hundreds of Americans have been killed or wounded by terrorists in the last 2 years. If this is a war, one casualty may be the freedom of controversial groups to express themselves without the government listening in. In New York, I'm Peter Van Sant for Eye on America.
Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, amid America the Beautiful, an ugly war against the government.